Okay. Um, I am going to jump around for a moment. Um, and we're going to start with number 7 on the in-class discussion notes. Okay. We're going to start with number 7. The reason why I want to start with number 7 on the in-class discussion notes is because we may not get through everything today, but the information we're going to cover from 7 to the end is going to be information that you need for your quiz that's due on Wednesday. Okay. There is a quiz that's due on Wednesday. I know it's out of our normal order of always being due on Monday mornings, but the information on that quiz for Wednesday, I want you to do that so that you're ready to come into class prepared for the activity on Wednesday. Okay. So we're going to kind of jump around a little bit. One of my favorite parts of chapter 4 is this concept of menu engineering. Chapter 4 is all about figuring out how do we cost out, how do we determine what our selling price is going to be. The second half of chapter 4 is going to be all about menu engineering. Okay. Menu engineering is a science. I don't know if you have thought about this before, but when you open a menu, okay, if it is a 2-page menu, more often than not, the majority of people look to either the top left, because that's where your appetizers are going to be, right? That's where you're going to start your meal journey, or potentially up in the top right. Okay, if you are opening your menu and it's a 3-page menu, traditionally you look to the center first. Okay, so there are all these different things about how menus are put together and how they are designed. Even to that, down to the things where I always use Chili's as this example, but like Chili's will put a little logo, little Chili's logo right next to something on the menu. And what does that typically signify? It's a popular item, right? Well, is it really popular? Or are they just trying to draw your attention to it so you order it? Okay. I get really cynical when I go into restaurants now, because I'm just like, really? Is that really your popular item? Or is it your star and you want me to order it because it's going to give you a lot of money? Okay. Or is it a dog is it a puzzle and do you want me to start ordering it so it becomes a popular item? Okay, so just basically drawing your attention to it. So in number 7, go ahead and draw this like you see right up here on the screen. Okay, draw this in that gap in number 7. I'm going to pause the recording while y'all do that. In a franchise restaurant, you probably aren't going, you are going to be expected to control your food cost. Okay, so you'll have to understand what the food cost is for the menu items that you're selling. And you also do have to understand this concept a little bit. One of my friends used to be the general manager at a steakhouse, and his servers loved to sell the lobster. It was market price. It was 3-pound lobster, so usually was anywhere between $100 to $120 each time they sold the lobster. So that's from a server's perspective, they loved selling lobsters because servers usually get tipped based on a percentage of their sales. But from a restaurant perspective, he's like, yeah, that's great that you sold lobsters tonight, but I also need you to sell the sides. You need to sell the mashed potatoes, and you sell the asparagus, the Brussels sprouts, because at $10 to $12 a side, those Brussels sprouts don't cost me a lot of money, but I sell them for $12. So that's great that you're selling lobsters, but it costs me a lot of money to buy those lobsters. So my profit is not the same with that. So it's really important that you not necessarily tell your staff in that particular way, but just kind of explain to them, yes, it's great you're selling lobsters, but I also need you to sell appetizers and sell sides, sell desserts, sell beverages, and alongside with that. So We do. And the reason why I say with the corporate offices or a franchise office, a restaurant, typically your menu is provided for you. You don't have a lot of control over the menu. But if you're an independent restaurant and you want to figure out what are your best sellers, what are your high performers, what are your low performers, this is absolutely something you can do. Okay. So number 8 on our notes page, okay, the contribution margin, okay, contribution margin, oops. That's basically another way of saying profitability. Contribution margin is what we subtract, the selling price, we subtract what it cost us, and that is what contributes to cover all of our other expenses and our profit. Okay. So our contribution margin, that goes back to that point of, yeah, I sell that lobster for $100, but it also cost me $50 versus those Brussels sprouts cost me $1 to make and I sell them for $15. So the contribution margin is what gives us that difference, okay? So we're going to use this tool at the end of class today, as well as the end of class in the activity in class on Wednesday to talk about how we use this to analyze our menu, okay? So there's 2 portions to analyzing our menu, okay? The first thing we have to do is determine our popularity, okay? First thing we have to do is determine our popularity. So that is number 10. It's jumping around a little bit. That's number 10 on your in-class notes. Okay. The menu mix or popularity. Number 10, the menu mix or popularity percentage refers to how popular an item is on the menu. It's really easy for us to go and look, okay, yeah, I sold 1,376 cheeseburgers. Obviously, the cheeseburgers are the most popular item on the menu. But when we put it into a percentage, it allows us to be able to put it into the perspective of how popular it is. Okay, what's our second most popular? What's our third most popular? And so we can use this menu mix and this popularity percentage to determine how popular an item is. Okay. We're going to jump back and forth between 2 different sheets. And now pull out the one that's stapled. The one that is stapled. Okay. Here we go. Clear. All right. So popularity index. Okay. The steps to calculate the popularity index, we first have to add all the menu items sold. Okay. We first have to add all the menu items sold. And then we next divide each item by the total. Okay. Divide each item by the total. So I've given you a couple of examples here. What I would like you to do is work these two questions out, number 1 and number 2, and then compare answers with your neighbor to see if you got the same answers. Compare answers with your neighbors. So the first step, we've already added all of them up for you. We have 320 entrees sold. But if steaks were 64 of those, what is the percentage? All right. So 320 entrees sold. 64 of them were steaks. That means our steak was 20%. Our steak was 20% of the sales. If we had 75 entrees sold and we sold 25 chicken entrees, that's a third, so 33.3%. Okay. This will come back into play in a later chapter, but for right now, we're going to use it for this example. Now, I have already calculated the first four for you. You're welcome. Okay. This is just to expedite the time in class today. So we're going to work on those bottom four, but let me show you how we got those first four questions. Okay. When I add up all of these first, that's the first thing we have to do. So go ahead and add up all of these number of entrees sold. We have to first, remember that's the first step. We have to add up everything to get the total number of entrees sold. And that is 500. Okay. 500. So we've sold 500 items. And now we have to figure out what the popularity for each one is. Okay. So now what I do is, what I would do if I were you, just while you're learning, is to do this. 75 divided by 500. Divided by 500. Just go all the way down. Okay, go all the way down, and that will give you your percentages. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the recording while you finish up those bottom four. All right, so just to make sure we have enough time to get through everything, I've gone ahead and put the answers up on the board. So we have 20% bacon cheeseburger, 16% BLTs, 4% corn dogs, and 6% veggie burgers. Okay. Now, it's okay to have one decimal place when you have percentages. It's okay to have one decimal place. This example, I made it very even. So I did 500 and I made sure everything was 0.0. But you can have a decimal place. You can round up to the nearest one decimal place. How can we check our answers to make sure that these are all correct? Okay, so if we add the percentages, what should they equal? They should equal 100. We're in good shape. Okay, now if because of rounding and decimals, you might get like 99.8 or you might get 100.2. That's okay. What's not okay is if you're at like 120%. Okay, that's some issues. But anywhere very close to 100 means that you are probably in the right ballpark. Okay, so let's talk about contribution margin next. Okay, let's talk about contribution margin next. To figure out our contribution margin, we have to first have to figure out cost out the recipe. Okay, and then we subtract the cost from the menu price. Whatever we're selling it for, we're going to subtract that cost. This is super easy, just subtraction. Okay, so we look here. $9.95 minus $3.50 gives me $6.45. And we just do that straight down. $7.50 minus $2.75, $4.75. $10.95 minus $6.75 is $4.20. And lastly, $9.50 minus $3.50 is $6. Okay, so contribution margin, literally we're just subtracting what did we sell it for minus the cost that it makes us to it costs us to make the recipe. So $6.45, $4.75, $4.20, and $6. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy all of our answers onto that other page, the next page. So we've done the first kind of two parts of the first part of our puzzle, okay? Then the first part of our puzzle. So that the top of the back page, you should go ahead and copy your answers from your popularity percentage, and then also copy your answers from your contribution margins. That way we're working on one table. I have the answers up here on the board, so if you don't want to flip back and forth, you don't have to, you can just look up here. So that's the first step. We first have to figure out what our popularity percentages are. We have to figure out what our contribution margins are. Now, if you think about that box that you drew on your notes on number 7, okay, there were two categories, high and low. Well, how do we know if this number represents high or low? We have to do one more kind of step in order for us to determine whether it's high or low. When we're talking about high or low, we're talking about the higher or lower than the average. So how do we find the average of any numbers? We add them all up and then we what? Divide by the number that we have, okay? So to get our average contribution margin, we're gonna add all of these numbers up, okay? To save you some time, I'm gonna tell you right now that the total of this is $44.10. $44.10. How did I do that so quickly? Excel, look at this. When I highlight these numbers, right down here on the bottom, it says sum $44.10. It actually even gives me the average of $5.51. That's cool too. But the first step is to do our contribution margin, just like any average. We want to add everything up. So $44.10. And how many items do we have on our menu? 8 items. And that comes to $5.51. Okay, so that is our average $5.51. So tell me, is 645 higher or lower than 551? Higher. What about 475? What about 420? $6? We know 6 is higher. 475 is lower. 570 is just a little higher, and 625 is higher. So you'll notice I just put H's and L's. I don't have to write out the whole word, just HL, HL, okay? I'm comparing my contribution margin. Is it higher or lower than the average contribution margin? Okay. Popularity gets a little bit more confusing, okay? And this is what we call our benchmark, okay? Let me change. Do me a favor on this, on your notes right here. Cross out popularity percentage and write the word benchmark, menu mix benchmark. Write that word benchmark, cross out popularity percentage and do menu mix benchmark, okay? Now, my menu mix benchmark. What is a benchmark? Anybody know what a benchmark is? Yeah, It's the number that we're going to compare everything to. So it's kind of like our average, but our popularity benchmark is a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide 100 by the number of items on the menu. That's going to give us our average. So in this case, we have 100 divided by 8. Okay, why 8? Because there's 8 items on our menu. When I divide 100 by 8, what do I get? 12.5. So that tells me that all of these menus items, if they had 12.5%, that would be the average. Okay. But for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, we have this idea that in order to achieve average popularity, we want to be a certain percentage of that average. So in this case, right up here, you see we're 75%. That number will always be given to you. Whether it's 75%, 80%, 90%, it'll always be given to you in any scenario that you work on in my class, okay? So that 12.5, I wanna multiply by 0.75, by that benchmark number that's given. So when I multiply 12.5 times 0.75, I get 9.4, essentially. Okay, 9.4. You see where I get that 9.4 from? Now that 9.4 is what I'm going to use to compare all of my percentages to. Okay, so my average popularity, 75% of the average popularity. So again, let me look at this. Let me back up just for a second. When this says 75% of the average popularity, this 12.5 is the average, right? We have 100% divided by the 8 menu items. The average is 12.5%. That's the average. So what this is saying is I want 75% of that average. So that's when we multiply by that 75% factor, okay? So what did we say, 9.4? Okay. So now when we come up here, we can look and see, is 15% higher or lower than 9.4? What about 17? 8? Chili cheeseburgers, bacon cheeseburgers, BLTs, corn dogs are lower, and veggie burgers are lower, okay? So now we have our highs and lows for both categories, both percentages, popularity percentage, as well as our contribution margins. Now we can plug this information into our little puzzle here, okay? You can refer back to your notes if you would like to, but what is this top right quadrant? That is our stars, okay? The bottom left quadrant is the dogs, okay? Those two are the easiest because a star is high popularity and high contribution margin. See, we have high right here and high right here. When they come together, they're in the star quadrant. So those two are the easiest ones to recognize because we have high, high and low, low for the dog. Okay, high popularity or low popularity, low contribution margin. Now, we have two other ones, puzzle and plow horse. And unfortunately, they both start with P. Okay, where is the puzzle located? The bottom right. okay? And then the plow horse is up on the top. Here's how I remember the plow horse and puzzle. Puzzle, another way of using the word puzzle is like confused. So as a restaurant owner, I'm confused why it makes me a lot of money, but I'm confused why it's not popular. Okay. It has low popularity, but it makes me a lot of money. Okay. So I'm confused as to why it's not popular. The plow horse, think about a plow horse that's just like, you know, plowing the rows and it's just working really hard. So it's super popular. People are ordering it, but for whatever reason, it's not making me a lot of money. Okay. So that's how I remember those two items. So what I like to do is go through and focus on one category at a time. Don't go menu item by menu item. Go one category at a time. So that way you're looking for just those two items. So let's take a look really quickly up here. I did not write these down. Hold on one second. And then okay, so let's go back. There we go. Okay, so let's focus on our stars. Which items have high popularity and high contribution margin? Okay, so starting from the top, our chicken sandwich. What else? The chili cheeseburger and bacon cheeseburger. Those are our stars. They are super popular. They're above the average popularity, and they also are above the average contribution margin. Okay. Now let's look at our dogs. Low and low. Those are the two easiest ones, right? Stars and dogs. What's our first dog? The crab cakes. Okay. And any other dogs on here? No, there's not. Awesome. So just one dog. Now let's focus on our puzzles. Okay. Low popularity, but high contribution margin. So corn dogs and veggie burgers. Okay. And then the last one is high popularity. It's super popular, but it has low contribution margin. Hamburger. There should be one more. Oh, the BLT. Okay. So now we've analyzed our menu. We put these into different categories. Now, if something is a dog, do we automatically get rid of it? No, we could keep it on our menu. But let's talk about why that one might be a dog. Why do you think crab cakes might be a dog? Andres. Yeah, so the cost of the ingredient is really high. Okay. Possibly shellfish allergies. Okay, maybe food allergies. Good. Yes. Okay, what do you mean by location? You're in a landlocked state. You don't really want to order crab in a landlocked state. Okay, absolutely good. Okay, maybe the price is too high. They're not willing to pay that price for that particular item, so they're not ordering it. Okay, so maybe we might decrease our selling price, see if maybe that will make it more popular. I don't know. Yes. Okay, the market you're in maybe is not like doesn't like fish. Other thing you look at it on this menu right here, it's the only seafood item. Okay. It's only seafood items. So maybe instead of taking it off our menu completely, maybe we bring it on at a specific time of the year, right? During Lent, people are eating more seafood than they are eating beef. And so maybe it's something that's on our menu just for a seasonal time. It's not on our menu all the time. Okay. So there's different things you can kind of consider with that. Now let's look at our stars. So chicken sandwich, chili cheeseburger, bacon cheeseburger. We're rocking on those. Okay. Our puzzles, corn dogs and veggie burgers. If they're low popularity, do we just get them off of our menu? Why would we not get rid of these two items on our menu? Okay, so they're still making us money. That's great. Awesome. What else? What's the characteristic about either one of these items? Okay, potentially they're not too terribly hard on labor unless you're hand dipping your corn dogs or making your veggie burger patties, whatever. Okay, but chances are you're probably not. So labor is not a big issue. Who typically orders corn dogs? Kids. So beyond all of this, it might be the only kid-focused item. And if it means that you just have a case of corn dogs in the freezer, it is not taking up that much space, does it really matter if you have that or not? Okay. Veggie burgers. It's our only vegetarian option on this whole menu. So we might want to go ahead and keep it on there just in that same example. Okay. Otherwise, if we just get rid of that, then we have no vegetarian options on our menu. Last thing, our hamburgers and BLTs and the plow horses, super popular. They don't make us a lot of money. Do we get them off of our menu? They're not making us money. Okay. They possibly entice people to come in, but our hamburgers are the base of our chili cheeseburgers and our bacon cheeseburgers. So we can't get rid of hamburgers, right? It just means that people probably like having something on their burger instead of just meat only and no cheese. Okay. BLTs, you're already selling bacon cheeseburgers. So, and you already have lettuce and tomatoes for your hamburgers. So really, what's the only ingredient different on a BLT than a burger? What's that? Doesn't have a meat patty. But when you think about like when you pick up a burger and you pick up a BLT, what's the ingredient that's different? The bread. You have to have Texas toast. It's non-negotiable. Okay, Texas toast on a BLT. So it means you have a couple loaves of Texas toast in your storage to sell that BLT. People may want that. Now, if we look at it from this perspective, it's low contribution margin. That means it's not making us a lot of money. Maybe my recipe has too much bacon. Maybe you're like Mr. Uminsky and you want 8 pieces of bacon on your BLT, right? And that costs too much money. So maybe let's modify our recipe and maybe only include 4 pieces of bacon. And then maybe that could move maybe it still stays popular, and then it can move it over to that star category the next time we analyze our menu. Anytime we make changes to our menu, we're going to want to go back and reanalyze it after a period of time to see if there's any movement in categories. Okay. It may mean that we knock it down to 4 pieces, and people who loved our BLT because it had 8 pieces of bacon on it are disappointed and they stop ordering it. And now it moves into a low popularity category. And we can say, oh yeah, we took away half the bacon. People didn't like it anymore. Whatever. So those are the things that we have to do as managers, especially if you own your own restaurant, if you have control over the menu. Okay. The reason why I wanted to go over this information today, we are going to do an example in class on Wednesday. Okay. Now, what I would like before you come to class on Wednesday, there is a quiz called the Popularity Benchmark and Average Contribution Margin Quiz. Okay. This is going to help you practice identifying those benchmarks and the average contribution margin. So let's take a look at this. What's that? Yes, so this quiz is due on Wednesday before you come to class. This one is different than our normal Monday mornings. This is Wednesday morning because I want you to have this concept down before you come to class, okay? So let me go over this. This is, there are essentially, how many questions do we have? We have 16 questions, okay? Let's start at the bottom for the last four. Contribution margin. How do you find the contribution margin? Okay, so find the average contribution margin. We have to add them all up and divide by the number we have. But we have to figure out what our contribution margin is first. So how do we figure that out? We subtract the menu price minus the recipe cost, gives you your contribution margin. So that's your first step, to do all those four and then find the average, okay? So that's the last four questions. They're different. So question 16, 15, 14, and 13. Okay, so you're going to practice getting that contribution margin, and then you're going to practice finding that average contribution. Okay, questions, comments, concerns about that? The popularity is where it gets a little bit more tricky. Okay, there are essentially 3 questions. I just have broken them out into 4 parts per question. Okay, so question number 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's using all the same information. It's just asking for a different one. So for example, question, if you notice, 5 appetizers, 6 salads, 15 entrees, 4 desserts. This one is asking for the appetizer only. If you go to question number 2, it's asking for the salad only. But the numbers stay the same. Entree category and dessert category. The reason why I did that is because this 75% is going to be the same for all 4 of those. Okay. So remember, to find our benchmark, we have to take 100, divide by the number of items on the menu. So in this case, for the appetizers is 5. What is 100 times, or 100 divided by 5? 20. 100 divided by 5 is 20. And then we have to multiply by this percentage that's given. So what is 20 times 0.75? 15. Okay. 20 times 0.75 is 15. So my answer is 15%. That is my benchmark for the appetizers. I have 5 appetizers. So I'm gonna take 100 divided by 5 and then multiply that number by 0.75. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about that? Yes. So 100, remember we're looking at 75% of the average popularity. So 100% is our total, right? That's our total. And then we divide by the number. So that is 20% is our average. And then it's asking for 75% of the average, which is times 75%, or times 0.75. Josh, did you have another question? The same question. Okay, yep. So we always start with 100 in this case. Okay, so now number 2, we start with 100, but in this case we have 6 salads. So 100 divided by 6 like 16 point something. 16.6. Okay. And we multiply that again by the same 0.75. Okay, so questions 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the same answer, the same numbers, and we're always using the 75%. Questions 5, 6, 7, 8 we're going to change the numbers, sometimes change the numbers, maybe not always, but now that percentage is going to change. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is 80%. 9, 10, 11, 12 are going to be 95%. Exactly. That's why I'm showing you this, because this is asking specifically for the appetizer category. Okay. The reason why we're breaking the menu up like this is because sometimes you can't necessarily do all the items on the menu because not every single person orders an appetizer. And so in that case, your appetizers may be not super popular. So that way, by doing it this way, you're doing it by menu category. And then that way it gives you a better representation. Questions, comments, concerns about this quiz? Yes. If it's a percent, if it is a percentage, always one decimal place. Always one decimal place.